Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is January 14th, and right now we are looking at the mid-level water vapor loop. You can see British Columbia, Washington, Oregon. Check out this next slug of moisture off to the southwest. This system is going to be rolling into the Pacific Northwest with some cold air in place. We have some freezing rain potential before things potentially warm up, but on the north side of that low across from the northwest Washington, southwest BC, we could have some impressive snowfall totals to that system also, and some big amounts across the Cascades. So winter is not done yet here, folks. It's going to be a fairly high impact event, even though it should be changing over and we should be warming up across portions of the Puget Sound and western Oregon here. We'll take a look at those details as we go, and we're going to be breaking down the system over the next few days. Taking a look at the visible satellite imagery here on the GOES 18, you can see some of this. It looks like snow across some of southwest Washington. It took us over 2.5 hours to get from Vancouver, Washington towards Centralia and Chehalis. Huge amounts of snowfall down here. Definitely the snowfall winners here across some southwest and western Washington, and a lot of ice pellets down here across Portland. Kind of limited the actual accumulation of some of the snow here. We were back in the gorge here yesterday with 100-mile-per-hour plus winds. You might have seen it on the live stream yesterday. Pretty intense storm. We saw some trees down. We saw a car crushed out there as well. Dynamic winter storm system, folks. I mean, it was just absolutely crazy coming up and down I-5. Big snowfall amounts. Very slow going down to single lane at times here in La Center, Ridgefield, and up towards Chehalis and Centralia. Big snowfall amounts, including Kelso out there as well. But now taking a look at the GFS, it kind of nailed the system. The GFS and the European did pretty good. You can see the big snowfall amounts coming up towards Centralia and Chehalis, and really across some of the southwest Washington was really the snow winners yesterday. Some very impressive amounts fell out there, and a lot of this fell as ice pellets across a lot of the Portland metro here, but it was mixed with snow for most of the day. And this is some of the scenes we saw yesterday. This tree fell and just crushed this car. Nobody was in it at the time, at least we don't think so. There was nobody in it when we took these pictures here, but some crazy blowing snow and just wild conditions out there as well. This was coming northbound on I-5 yesterday afternoon and evening, and it was just intense snowfall. Definitely heavy snowfall at times, and most of the time the I-5 was completely covered in the compact snow out there. Very chilly temperatures. It was like 16, 17 degrees at times, so a very dynamic winter storm across southwest Washington and northwest Oregon. And this is looking up into late Tuesday and Wednesday, January 16th, 17th, we have some snow again for portions of the eastern Washington. Better amounts versus Oregon here, and we'll look at some of the snowfall maps here in a moment. But you can see winter is not done with the Pacific Northwest yet. You can see the dangerous wind chill is going to be very cold tomorrow morning on Tuesday morning as well, when we start to get some transition going on here west of the Cascades, but especially dangerous east of the Cascades on through British Columbia. Now, this is looking at apparent temperature, basically wind chill, and as we go on in through the day today, you can see we it's not going to feel too bad out there, and it's nice and sunny across some areas here, especially western Washington. And then you can see as we go through tonight, though, to tomorrow morning, some pretty chilly temperatures. In western Oregon, you could be down into the single digits for the wind chill readings here, and as you can see, much colder east of the Cascades there as well. And then we start to head towards Tuesday, and you can kind of see that slug of moisture moving up the coastline here with some pretty chilly air trapped at the surface here across portions of western Oregon and Washington, and that is our next weather maker here. Could have some freezing rain totals coming in here, so we're going to be watching that closely over the next few days. Pretty high impact stuff. Even just a glaze of ice across metro areas can cause big problems. And this is something interesting off for the National Weather Service, Missoula, Montana. Check it out. Ice jams possible through next week. Once the ice forms, water can rise several feet in a matter of minutes, causing localized flooding here. It's almost tempting to go out there and try to see if we can video some of this stuff. But yeah, interesting out there. Ice jams possible through next week. Avalanche danger. Always be sure to check this avalanche.org before you go out. This is great stuff. You can click on these individual sections here and you can get the forecast and gives you all kinds of good detailed information here. And right now we're just looking at considerable and some moderate, I believe that is, yes, across some of the North Cascades there as well. You can see Mount Hood there and some of the Oregon Cascades included. And if you want a nice affordable home weather station, click on that link down below to save 10% off. Highly recommended. All solar powered and wireless. Stores all the data for you in the cloud. Now, looking at the GFS, so we're looking at a wider view of things here. You can see the Hawaiian Islands to the bottom left. You got BC, Washington, and Oregon. There goes our system continuing to push off with that Arctic air across some of Montana and eastern Idaho and Wyoming. Just savagely cold air. And you see the strong pressure gradient with it as well. But then we've got some cold air trapped at the surface here. And you can see our next storm system on the GFS starting to approach the Oregon-Washington border there and start to spread some of this ice back up over the Willamette Valley, Puget Sound potential as well. And some areas in the North Sound and again Southwest BC could be dealing with snow during this event, again just depending on the exact track of this low as it moves into western Washington. And you can see the ice really hanging on in through the gorge and the Washington-Oregon border here as we go all the way on in through Wednesday afternoon. Big snows across the Cascades, snow continuing potentially across Southwest BC, so pretty high impact stuff here as we go on in through Tuesday and Wednesday. And then we start to warm things up here across much of the Pacific Northwest, and the GFS and some of the models want to keep us pretty wet as we go towards the later portion of January, maybe even some atmospheric river activity and some strong lows moving up towards Vancouver Island. So it looks like we're going to remain active towards the end of January here too as well. Might go from the ice box to some flooding concerns. Looking at the European, I specifically waited for the video here today to show the 12Z European just to kind of get the most recent information. And as we scroll on in through the day Tuesday, you can see that precip coming up from the south. And again, the Willamette Valley kind of under the gun here as we go on in through the day Tuesday. And by Tuesday afternoon and evening and the nighttime hours, you can see some of this ice up across the Seattle Metro, Olympia down the I-5 corridor. Snow again to further areas north. You can see Whatcom County, potentially Southwest BC. Could be a significant snowfall event there as well. And there's a very slim chance for some snow coming down a little bit further here. But right now the models are pretty robustly saying we're not going to get snowfall here across the Seattle Metro for the most part. But you can see it's kind of continuing on in through the day Wednesday for some areas off to the north of Seattle and across Southwest BC. Okay, so now let's look at the NAM3 cam. I just wanted to kind of show you that we do have pretty good model agreement here. This only goes out 60 hours, but you can clearly see as we go through the day Tuesday, you can see that colder air in place here. And right at the end of the North American model, a high resolution, it is showing that falling is freezing rain across a lot of the Willamette Valley in western Oregon. And of course, this will be spreading up as we go on in through Tuesday night. Now, looking at accumulating freezing rain here, you'll see some interesting totals as, again, I waited for the 12Z European here, and we put this into motion, and we go through the day Tuesday, and you can see some areas getting up over a quarter inch, a third of an inch of ice here, some of the I-5 corridor. And right now, it might be a little bit too warm right in Seattle. It's going to be very marginal for some places, and we are going to be warming up during this event here. So maybe we can avoid some of the worst of this, but anytime you even get a little bit of glaze here on the roadways or cars or planes out at the airports, it's a big deal. It's a high impact event, and through some areas of the gorge there on the Washington-Oregon border, you have some big ice accretion going on. Now, taking a look at the total snow here on the 12Z European, actually, this is the first time I'm going to be looking at this here, and you can see it favors area northbound here, mainly north of Marysville and just north of Anacortes here, but it's actually including some of the San Juan, some of the Bellingham area, Southwest BC, potentially big snowfall event incoming here as we go on in through the day Wednesday. And then finally that coming to an end, big amounts across the Cascades also, and some snowfall for the Cascades of Oregon. Now, taking a look at what's known as a sounding, this is a cross-section of temperature here for Portland International Airport. This is last night's European run here. And what you see here, this red line, this is the zero line here. So that's freezing. You can see as you're about, 2,500 feet, 3,000 feet, maybe a little bit higher in the atmosphere, you're above freezing there. So that precipitation is going to be coming down as rain probably as we go on in through the day Tuesday. But look at that surface layer there, the sub-freezing air. So anything that falls through that is going to freeze onto the surfaces. And you can see we go above freezing right about very early Wednesday morning here, and then that would put an end to that freezing rain event here. But yeah, that's the problem, that above freezing air above the surface, rain falling through it, and then freezing on the sub-freezing air at the surface. And you can kind of see, this is another way to look at it here, Portland, you can see as the temperature cross-section here, and you can see that sub-freezing air at the surface and kind of ending there as we go on in through Tuesday night. But again, rain falling through that creates quite a dynamic scenario with the freezing rain rain and the ice accretion. Here, Salem also, you can again see that very narrow layer of subfreezing air at the surface with the warmer air aloft, typical freezing rain setup. Olympia, something similar here as well, and even for SeaTac Airport also. We had a pretty good ice storm last year, as you remember. This should not be as dynamic as far as the ice accretion. We had about 0.55 inches of ice accretion here at my house just to the west of SeaTac. Now, looking at the GFS, the 12Z, just to kind of drill this in, you can see as we go through the day Tuesday, you can see that ice accretion here anywhere from the Seattle Metro on south, according to the GFS. And we'll see how this trends over the next few days. This is going to be flipping and flopping back and forth. And I'll also show you something else here in a moment. Stick with me. But looking at the European, this is a 12Z run, 100-meter wind speed. So what's going on here is you can kind of see the gorge winds going on here. That's a sea level gap, continues to pull cold air through there off into the Portland Metro. And that's why the Willamette Valley gets so many freezing rain events relative to places like Seattle or just a little bit north, because you have that proximity of that very cold air coming out in the lower levels here and keeping that freezing or sub-freezing layer there at the surface. And then you can bring some warm Pacific Ocean air over that, bringing rain, and you can create some very dynamic freezing rain events. So here goes our next system as we go through Tuesday afternoon. Look at the gorge wind still going, still pulling that cold air through, and then that precip's going to be moving over the area, and you can see the gorge winds going all the way on through Tuesday night, still going here very early Wednesday, but then the southerlies start to try to come up the Willamette Valley, and those southerlies will try to scour out that cold air. You can see the low pressure center here right off the Washington coast, and still some easterly component here. So it's going to be very interesting to see how long that sub-freezing air hangs around some of the Puget Sound area as well. And then you can see the southerlies finally start to take over as we go through Wednesday morning. And this low pressure track, I mean, if it's off by a little bit, and this comes in a little bit further south, you can introduce snow even towards some of the Puget Sound area or the central Puget Sound area here as we go. But right now the models are not showing that. However, I'm going to show you kind of a fantasy forecast here in a minute, because you can see some of the individual ensemble runs on the European. They run 50 perturbed members here, and you can see a few of them do have a significant snowfall for Seattle. We're not counting on that right now. This is just kind of a fantasy look at things here. We're not expecting a big snowfall for Seattle yet, but I cherry picked one of those ensemble members here, number 48. You can see the low pressure center off the Oregon coast. You see Seattle, Portland, and Vancouver here. If I put this into motion, look at the track of this low. That's why that significant snowfall is showing up on some of the ensemble members. If that low pressure center took a track like that, we would not get those southerlies to scour out some of that colder air, and the column would remain probably mostly snow for areas like Seattle northbound here. But this is an outlier, and it's just kind of a fantasy forecast. We're expecting that low to come in a little bit further north there, and we should be transitioning from sub-freezing temperatures to above freezing temperatures as we go on in towards Wednesday morning. And I'll show you that here on the ensemble mean. So this is the average of all those 50 ensemble members on the European on last night's run. Here goes our system coming up, and you can see that low pressure kind of coming in right across some of western Washington here, but that would allow this air to go above freezing across a lot of the Seattle Metro here. And we'll be watching this very closely, of course, and I may even do another video tonight once we get the more data coming in. We'll look at some of the ensemble members on the 12Z, and we'll also look at the 18Z, and so I might do another video tonight depending on what's going on. You can see the GFS, again, not expecting that significant snowfall for Seattle, only has one run there, number 20. So for the most part, we should be modifying. However, the further north you go, the better chances you're going to have for some of the snow to be accumulating. As you can see, a lot of the ensemble members do have quite a significant snowfall here for Bellingham International. This is Spokane. Of course, there's more cold air over there as well. And you can see some pretty good snow probably incoming here as we go on in through the day Wednesday. This is Boise, also another round of snow likely to be incoming here. The mean and the control are somewhere around 3 inches, plenty cold over there also. And Yakima could be getting another round or two as well as we go on in through this upcoming week. And then we take a look at the extended, because you see the GFS starting to show some of this above average here, the 16-day precipitation anomaly across some of the Pacific Northwest. This is way out in fantasy land right now. We're just kind of looking at the tea leaves and trying to see what's coming down the line. And you can see the temperature anomalies. We're going to start to go above average here. We're really going to thaw out as we go towards the end of January. And you can see that reflected here in the Climate Prediction Center 8 to 14-day temperature probability outlook. Much of the West is included in that. That would include British Columbia as well. And you can see that above average chance for precipitation here across much of the West Coast. 6 to 10 day goes through January 23rd. So anyway, yeah, I may do another video tonight because this is going to be quite a dynamic situation. Even if it only goes on for a few hours, before we transition to above freezing temperatures across the metropolitan areas, that would be a big deal. And of course, we have big snowfall potential further north across Whatcom, Skagit County, up into southwest BC, and across the Cascades also. So yeah, we'll break everything down again. If things look interesting, I'll do another video tonight. And if not, I'll just see you in the normal briefing tomorrow. So anyway, hope you guys liked that live stream yesterday. It was lots of fun. I think I did about 5 hours of live streaming yesterday. I had a lot of people showing up. We had over 2,000 viewers at one point in the live stream. Lots of fun out there. Twisted my ankle pretty good. It hurts today. I hit my head and got thrown down the stairs. Trying to fight 90-mile-per-hour winds is not a smart thing, and probably enhanced by the cathedral there where I tried to get a wind reading on my handheld. But anyway, hope you guys are liking these videos. I'll probably talk to you again tonight, and if not, I will see you guys again tomorrow morning, and I'll talk to you then.